Hello and welcome to another tech savvy tutorial here on Kelly L. Gable Coaching YouTube channel. So today we're actually going to be doing a tutorial that has been requested. And this is all about utilizing, well, we're going to do a few of these, I think, in general, but we're talking about Trello, which if you have been paying attention in any of my platforms, you know that I am a huge fan of Trello. I know there are many other options out there, Asana, Monday, just to name a few, but for me, I just happen to really connect with Trello. It's pretty, which, well, I mean, that's silly, but when you've got to go in and do something repetitively and work on your business and keep track of things, just little things like it being pleasing to look at can actually make a really big difference in motivating you to go and do that thing. So what we're doing today is we're going to look at the Butler feature. A long time ago, this feature was a power-up that you had to add to your board. And if you are like me and you like to maximize the free options of things for as long as possible, I was always super frustrated because when you're free, you only have one power-up per board, which is still incredibly powerful and generous of them. But when you just want to be able to do simple automations, having to use up that power up for the Butler Butler automations and Butler tools was so sad, because then I could never do anything else, right? At some point, I feel like maybe Trello purchased Butler or they partnered with them, but they decided to make it just a standard feature on every single board. And that, to me, was the moment that Trello stepped it up. That was the moment that it was game changing for me, but also can be for you too. And I think you may just never have experimented with it when it was a power up. And so you see it there, but you don't really know why you should use it or that you should use it. And I'm here to tell you, you absolutely should. It's incredibly powerful. And I'm going to show you a very simple automation you can set up, but that is super time saving, especially as your business scales, right? So let's hop in real quick. Now, for full disclosure, I do have Trello Gold personally. So I do actually have the ability to have multiple power-ups. I think I get 3 power-ups on each of my boards, but again, I'm not even using a power-up here because Butler is included. So what we're doing today is we're going to be talking about how to make a copy of a card on one list to another list, including the existing checklist, but we're going to not include the attachments, okay? So this was a very specific request that I received that I think is a very common one, right? Regardless of how you organize your business, whether you have an entire board for one client or you have a board of clients where you have lists for the client, or like I've done here where you have an entire board, you have lists based on the month, and then you have client cards. There's a million different ways you can do this, which is one of the reasons that I love Trello so much. But let's just go, for example, where you have an entire board that is for all of your clients. You choose to organize the lists by month, and you have client cards, okay? So you can see right here when we click in, we've got our test client here. We've got an attachment because remember, we don't want to include the attachment. So I want to make sure you see how to do that. And then we've got our test checklist that we do want to carry over, okay? So we're going to have this. We're going to start with clicking this Butler button. And when you come in here, you might get a little bit overwhelmed because there's so many different options here, right? And there is no right or wrong answer here. You can do a lot of what I'm going to show you on multiple different options, right? You could create a card button that you push in order to copy it when you're ready to copy it. That's totally doable. You could create a board button that will automatically take all of the cards. So if you're using my example where you have one board that has all your clients on it, you might want to create this as a board button, okay? So that it's something that, will move all of your existing clients on list March, copy them over to list April. And I will show that at another time. That is not how the person who requested this is handling her stuff. So I'm not going to show that version. But if you would like to see that, do me a favor and drop a comment below, and I will do that because I think that's incredibly powerful. Okay, so one thing I'm going to mention as I was researching this specific use case, what I have not yet been able to find as of recording this tutorial, which is in March of 2021, I have found a way that you can not include a link that is attached to the original card. In this particular use case, there are files that are attached to the original card, and I have yet to find any resources as far as how to remove that attachment. So I will not be including that aspect of the original use case request because I've searched all over. I do have a request in with the Trello and Trello Butler community. So if after I release this, I get an update or I find that information, I will be sure to add that in the comments, or not in the comments, but in the description below. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so there's a few things we have to do setup wise on our original card in order to make this work. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to look a little bit complicated, and it is a little complicated. This is not a simple automation, but I'm going to give you exactly the steps that you need to do it. So once you've set it up once, you can enable it on any board that you want. So you should only need to set this flow up once for this type of activity, okay? All right, so one of the things that we need to set up on our original card, we're gonna go into the card here, and we're gonna add a label. Now I've already created this client card label, so I'm gonna add that. And then I'm also gonna come here and add a due date. So we need something that it can trigger off of, right? So I'm gonna make the due date for right now, because I want to be able to show you in real time how it works. I'm going to make it today, and we'll change the time a little bit later. But what you'll want to do is make it the end of the month, right, in the future. Okay, sorry, I had to deal with those pings that were happening. So yeah, so for right now, I'm going to be leaving the due date today, and I'll be adjusting the time so that we can do a quick little demo of this. But ideally, you're going to want to put this at that last day of the current month that you're setting it up. Don't worry about, you know, whether the month has 28 days, 30 days, 31. That's going to be fixed in the automation. So just worry about this initial one that you're setting up, okay? Whatever the end of that current month is, okay? So, oops, I didn't hit save. Okay, so actually, just for sake of not being confusing, let's just set it that way right now. That way it will look the way you need it to look, and then I'll just do the little demo for you real quick. Okay, so we've got the client card label here, and we've got the due date already marked. Perfect. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into Butler, and we're going to start with a due date automation, due date command. It's already right here, but we're going to recreate it so that you can see step by step how I did it. So we can click create command. And we're going to add our trigger, keeping in mind that a trigger, when you're talking about a workflow or an automation, the trigger is basically the when of the scenario. It's telling this automation when to happen, okay? So we want this to happen the last day of every month automatically. So we're going to come in here, and we are going to look for this the moment a card is due. And we're going to go ahead and check, is there anything we need to add here? Yes, we need to make sure it's only a card that has this green client card label, because we don't want this to happen to every single card that you might have within your Trello or even within that same board that has a due date. We only want it to happen to the ones with this specific label, okay? So the moment a card with the green client card label is due, we're going to hit the plus sign. And when you scroll up, you're going to see there's your trigger. Now it's going to ask, what action do you want to be triggered? What do you want to have happen? Okay, so we're going to come down here and we're going to click on dates, again, because we're doing a date related command here. We want to mark the due date complete. So you're going to go ahead and hit the plus this time. And when you do it this time, you notice on the trigger one, you could see kind of the refresh of the page and that let you know that your action was accepted. When you do it on the action, or I'm sorry, your trigger was accepted. When you do it on the actions, it doesn't do that. And you're going to be tempted like me to keep hitting the plus button, waiting for something to happen. And then you'll scroll up and you'll end up with a million of the same actions. So don't do that. Click the button, scroll up, make sure it's there. Okay. This is the entire first piece of what we're doing. So we're going to go ahead and hit save. Okay. And just double checking my work. We're going to look here and say that these are both exactly the same. Yeah, okay, they're both exactly the same. So I'm going to go ahead and unenable my old one so that we don't end up with the same thing happening. Oops, that's the new one. I want to unenable the old one, so, or disable, I guess is the correct word, so that we don't accidentally have it duplicate. I don't want to confuse you with that. Okay, so once you've set up the due date command, we're going to come in here to the rules, and this is where it gets a little bit trickier. Okay, that first one is relatively straightforward, but you can see here when you look at these commands that they can get a little bit complicated, right? This is actually the one that we're about to replicate. So we're going to go ahead and hit create rule. Yet again, it's going to ask us for a trigger because we need to tell it when to happen. So we're going to add trigger, and I am looking at my notes down here to make sure that I do it the same way this time. Okay, so creating a rule, our trigger is going to be based on the date, because remember what we just did in that other command, that other workflow, is we've told it automatically on the last day of every month, make that complete, make that card complete, right? So now we're going to actually trigger our next workflow off of the completion of the last one. Are you still following me? If not, rewind a little bit, look at that again, and then come back here. Okay, so we are looking at dates, and we're going to look for, we're going to say when the due date is marked complete in a card, and here's our little filter. That's a funnel, but it means filter. In a card with, again, that green client card label. So we're going to go ahead and hit the plus sign here. And you see when I did that, it added that into this workflow, or into this action option, I should say. So when the due date is marked complete in a card with that label, so we're going to hit plus because this is our trigger. And let's just go up, make sure that looks right. Yep, it sure does. You can see we have no actions yet. We haven't told it what to trigger. So now let's look at our actions. So now we're going to come down into this action section, and we want to make a copy of the original card. So we're going to go ahead and hit the move. Remember, move and copy are always going to be in the same area. It doesn't always say copy in the action options at the top. You have to go to move first, and then you will actually see copy. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to switch this over to copy because we don't want to lose the original card. We want to keep the original card just in case we have any notes or comments there. And we're going to make a copy of it onto the next list. Okay, I am going to copy this right here is actually talking about comments. If you want to include the comments or not include the comments. In this case, let's not include the comments. I don't know if the requester uses comments on their cards, but they might. So let's remove them because typically those would be month specific, right? So without the comments, we're going to go to the top of the list. And here's where it gets a little tricky. So I do have, you can see right here, I have March, April, and May already listed here. But if I were to set this to automatically put it on the April list because it's March right now, that does not make this an evergreen workflow. And by evergreen, I mean you don't have to go in and change it all the time, right? It's going to work consistently. So the trick with this is using a little bit, they have a little bit of variable coding. It's really, really, really simple. Don't get scared by the word coding, but it's something that creates this evergreen process so that it will always look at the next month, not a specific list on your board. Okay, so I could choose April, but then it would always go to the April list. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one of these little curvy brackets, and I'm going to type with no spaces, next month name, And then I'm going to close that little code with the curly brackets. Remember, you always have to have a beginning bracket and an ending bracket for everything that you do in any type of coding. In this case, it's the curly brackets. I don't know what they're really called, but that's what you know what I mean. Okay, so next month name is what we're going to do there. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and hit the plus sign. Okay, so we scroll up here, we see our trigger, we see, okay, we're copying the card without comments to the top of the list, next month name. But remember, we said earlier we wanted to keep the checklist that was on the original card. So we can just add another action here. We're going to go ahead and come to the checklists option. We're just adding the checklist. So we're going to click here, and I created a checklist called test checklist. You'll name it whatever it is that you have named your checklist on your card, okay? No brackets needed because this is a specific checklist that you've created. It's not a universal code that anyone can use, okay? So we got test checklist. This right here, you don't need to worry about this. This is like if you were pulling from a specific other card, like you wanted to see like the status of the checklist on that other card. We don't want that. We just want a brand new copy of the same checklist. Same thing here. If you wanted to rename it, like maybe it's test checklist April, you could do that, but we're not going to do that here. Okay. We're just going to have add test checklist to the card. Again, we hit the plus sign and see we've added another thing here. Okay. And then the last thing we want to do, because keep in mind that the way that this entire process is triggered is from the due date command we created. Okay. If you skip the next step of what I'm about to show you, it's going to automatically keep that original due date. So let's say, for example, the original due date was March 31st. Every time it copies the card into a new month, it's going to keep the due date at March 31st if you don't do this next step, okay? And that's not good because if it stays there, it will never trigger it month to month to month, okay? Following me? All right, so we're going to do one last thing. And we're going to come back in here to dates, and we are going to move the due date. So we're going to come in here, move the due date. We're going to click on this thing right here. And here we have a couple of different options, right? So to keep this simple, we want it to be the last day of the month always, right? So we're going to come into here where it says first. We're going to scroll all the way down. And lucky for us, they have a last day and a last working day. We're going to go with last day. And we're going to keep this on the last day of the month, because remember that this is actually, well, actually, no, we want to do the next month. So what's going to happen is now it's going to move the due date to the end of April, the last day of April, once it's on the April list. Okay. I hope this is all making sense. If not, please rewind and watch again. Or if it still doesn't make sense, let me know in the comments. Okay, so I have just updated this action to move the due date to the last day of the next month, but I'm not done because if you scroll up here, that's not showing up here yet, right? So yeah, I hit the plus sign to specify what I wanted here, but I still have to click this plus sign to get it to move up here, move the due date to the last day of the next month, okay? These arrows right here are just if you want to change the order of the actions. In this particular case, this is in the correct order, because if you don't copy the card first, then it can't add a checklist and it can't move the due date, okay? These two could be in either order with each other, it doesn't matter, but they're fine how they are, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and hit save. And that is the extent of setting up the rules and setting up all the details. Let me just go ahead real quick down here. I want to get rid of, or just disable the one that I created earlier. So again, we don't have any kind of duplicates. Okay, so I'm gonna do a quick little time lapse here so that we don't, or time jump so that we don't have to sit here and wait for it. But I'm gonna go in here, like I said, and I'm gonna change this to being today and to being a time that's like in my future, like very close in my future, so that I can come back in a minute and show you the change. Okay, so stick with me, you won't even notice the difference. Oops. Oh no, where's my little X, there it is, hiding behind my picture. Okay, so you can see, oh, it didn't save that. So we're gonna come in here, March 3rd, which is today. I'm gonna change this to 12:10 p.m. and then I'm gonna come down here and hit save. Okay, and then I'm gonna pause this recording, and when we come right back, you're gonna see the new card right here. All right, so that was probably the quickest 2 minutes for you, not quite so quick for me. But coming back here, we can see, look, we have our duplicate card. So keeps the cover image, has the same name. We could change the name if automatically if we wanted to. We can see that attachment is still there, that darn attachment that I haven't figured out how to remove yet. We can also see that our checklist is there. We're also seeing the due date has been pushed out correctly, right? So let's go into our original card. You can see right here, it's been marked complete. I did not do that manually. That happened on its own, right? We have our test checklist, item 1, item 2, item 3, okay? We've got our attachment there, which is the bane of my existence right now. But we open our new one, and you can see it didn't try to go to May or anywhere else. It only went to the next month, right? Which is what we wanted. So we're gonna go ahead and open April. Oh, did that again. Open April. You can see we still have that client card label, which is important so that it will be there when the trigger expects it next month. We've got our due date is automatically pushed out. This was pushed out to the same time that I had done for my test, but you could make this at any time of the day, okay? And you can see there's that darn attachment, but here's our test checklist as well, okay? So I would love to say, oh, it's really that simple. I know that's not super simple. I know for some people that might have seemed really, really complicated. It's hopefully not feeling that complicated. It's just a number of steps that you need to do, some early setup like I showed you, as well as just really double checking and making sure that you're hitting the plus signs where needed and double checking your the logic behind what you are asking something to do, okay? So I hope this was really helpful. Please let me know in the comments if you tried this and if it worked well for you. If you tried it and it didn't work, let me know. I would love to reach out and see if I can help you figure it out, because as you guys have issues and make requests, I learn. And as I learn, I can help you guys even more and even better. So I'm definitely open to that. If this video and this kind of tutorial is something that you benefit from and you like to see, I would love it if you would please subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell. I do post other things beyond these tutorials, but these tutorials are the bread and butter of this channel and what I want to be providing to you guys, the value that I want to provide. So please, please, please subscribe and click that notification bell so that you never miss any of the tech savvy tutorials. And if you have a request, something that you would like me to do a tutorial for, please also leave that in the comments. I would be happy to take a look. And if it's something that is in my wheelhouse, I would be happy to do it, or I'll learn it and I'll do it. All right. Thanks again. Have a great day.